Their music was instant. I mean, when they played other people's music, it was instant. They played other people's, because they didn't just walk out and do dance to the music one night. I mean, they were doing Otis Redding. They were doing, they all had their individual songs. And it wasn't until later on where they started blending in their own music. Funky Broadway, that'd be Sly. So they'd all do their, I mean, they were the best cover band that you ever heard. But when they started implementing their own music, that was the evolution. That's when they took off. Each one individually, if you broke them apart, they were talent. You put all this energy together, and you wrap that up with this, wonderful sound that nobody had ever heard before. Funk, R&B. They do the hand jive. I mean, they get up there and slap. I mean, they took it from everywhere, and they just wrapped it all up, and it was all new. I mean, they were workaholics. There was no doubt about it. They wanted their music together. And so the cathedral not only turned out to be their venue, but it was also their home. It was their practice. When he got there, he would work. And then he'd work forever. I mean, it wasn't like he would look at a clock and say, time's up. I mean, Sly would work. But he was always late. And then we started recording. We cut Can't Turn You Loose. We cut a few things. And started running around with some tapes. And people would drive for 50 miles to come and see this show. At 1 o'clock, all the dancing would stop. And then we'd move tables onto the dance floor because they wouldn't let us dance after 2. No after hours dancing. So it was a sit-down venue. But what Sly and the group liked about it was that they really had an opportunity to perform in front of a sitting, paying attention audience. Because on the earlier sets, everybody's dancing. And when they're dancing, they're not really focused. I mean, they're listening to the music, but they're not focused on the act. They're focused on their partner on the dance floor. So at 2 o'clock, we'd move tables and chairs onto the dance floor, so it was impossible to dance because we were breaking off. So we'd hire a girl to come in, and when Sly was in the heat of one of his major songs, he's got everybody just slapping. This girl would stand up and throw her coat off, and she was topless. And everybody would just go crazy. And then she'd put her coat back on and sit back down. And I think we'd give her like $10 or something. It was really, and so the reputation was, hey, if you go down there and catch Sly after hours, sometimes these girls are just jumping up and taking their clothes off. When we showcased him, I called Bill Graham because we had touched bases a couple of times. So I called him up and I said, listen, I'm showcasing my group and I'd like you to come down and I want to put him in the Fillmore. So Sly did a kick-ass set. So after the set, Bill, a couple of friends of his, we all go into the men's room, our office. So we're standing there, and I said, well, what do you think? I said, I want to get him into the Fillmore. I said, they're good. He says, Rich, they're too much of this. He says, they're just too much of this. I said, Bill, you got the Fillmore. You have a dance floor. Don't you want to get those hippies that are sitting there in an Indian squat off their asses someday and maybe get them up and dance a little bit? And of course, everybody in the group was anticipating what was the answer. Are we playing the Fillmore or are we not playing the Fillmore? So Sly comes up, he says, how are we doing, man? I said, we're not playing the Fillmore. He said, why, man? What's the problem? What happened? And I gave him the story. It's too much of this. He goes, I'll tell you what, I'll write some other music to make us fit in. I said, no, Sly, don't do that. I said, you got dance music. You stick to the music. Don't change your music. We're not changing because this jerk-off won't hire us. You're better than that. And I really believe, in fact, I know, that was the night that inspired the song Dance to the Music. It was that conversation. Because he wanted to change. And I said, no, don't change. And Sly, if you see this, you got to call me up and tell me if I'm right or not. So we didn't play the Fillmore. But we filled the cathedral. And then Dave Caprilla came down, cut Sly out of the pack, took him to a little rendezvous place, and Sly came in the next morning and said, you know, I've spent all night with this guy, and he thinks he can take us much faster than we're going right now. So, you know, kind of like not working the film, or kind of like let down. Somebody comes in, makes you a lot of promises. It's your career, you know, so you got to go where you think it's best. And so that was pretty much winding up our relationship.